cook caught playing hidden piano, but the millionaire boss's reaction is astonishing. Emily Johnson felt her heart stop when she heard footsteps approaching the main dining room of the restaurant. Her hands trembled over the keys of the grand piano she was forbidden to touch. It was late at night at the Garden, the most sophisticated restaurant in Chicago. Emily should have been finishing the kitchen cleanup, but the temptation to play that magnificent piano had been too strong. For months she had admired the instrument during her shifts, dreaming of the day she could caress its ivory keys. "What do you think you're doing?" Richard Thompson's deep voice echoed through the empty dining room. Emily jumped up, the piano bench creaking against the marble floor. Her white chef's uniform was wrinkled after a full day of work. She lowered her head, bracing for the scolding that was sure to come. "Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry, I just wanted—" The words died in her throat. Richard walked slowly toward her. His Italian shoes clicked with each step. Emily knew that sound well. It was the same one that announced his arrival every morning when he came to inspect the restaurant, part of his culinary empire. "How long have you worked here, Emily?" he asked, stopping just a few feet away. 3 years, sir. "And how many times have I seen you near this piano?" Emily swallowed hard, so he had noticed. All those times she had walked through the dining room, slowing her pace to admire the instrument, pretending she was just passing through to get to the kitchen faster. "A few times," she admitted softly. "Do you know the first rule of this restaurant? Employees are not to use facilities meant for guests," Emily recited, the words bitter on her tongue. Richard took another step forward. Emily could see his reflection in the polished piano. A middle-aged man, graying hair, impeccable suit. The perfect portrait of a successful businessman. So different from her, a simple cook from humble beginnings. "And yet, you decided to break that rule. I know I was wrong. Please don't fire me. I need this job." Emily finally looked up, desperation clear in her voice. To her surprise, Richard didn't seem angry. There was something different in his expression, something she couldn't quite place. "Play," he ordered suddenly. "What?" "You heard me. I want to hear what you were playing." Emily hesitated. Was this some kind of test? A trap to give him more reason to fire her? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. "I don't have all day," Richard's voice snapped, her out of her thoughts. With hands still shaking, Emily sat back down. She took a deep breath and began to play. The first notes came out hesitantly, but soon the music flowed naturally. It was Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, a piece she had learned many years ago, back when she still had hopes for a different life. As she played, Emily forgot where she was. She forgot about the chef's uniform, forgot about the millionaire boss behind her. There was only her and the music, like in the days when she practiced at the Chicago Conservatory of Music before everything went wrong. When the last note faded into the dining room, the silence that followed was almost deafening. Emily remained, still afraid to turn around and face reality again. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Richard's voice was different now, softer. "At the Chicago Conservatory of Music. I studied there from age 8 to 18. "And why did you stop?" Emily closed her eyes. That wound still ached, even after all these years. "My father got sick. Cancer. We needed money for the treatment, and classical music doesn't pay the bills. I started working in kitchens because it was what was available. I discovered I had a talent for it too. But you never forgot the piano." "How could I?" Emily finally turned, facing Richard. "Music is in me, Mr. Thompson. I can spend the whole day preparing dishes, but at night, when I close my eyes, I still hear the melodies." Richard walked to the window, gazing at the city lights outside. Emily took the chance to study him more closely. There was something melancholic in his posture, a sadness she had never noticed before. "Do you know why this piano is here?" he asked without turning around. "To entertain the guests during dinner." "No, it's here because my wife loved music. Catherine was a professional pianist. She played in the finest theaters in the country. This piano was hers." Emily felt a tightness in her chest. Everyone at the restaurant knew Richard was a widower, but no one spoke about it. She passed away 5 years ago. Since then, I've hired pianists to play here, but none of them. Richard paused, searching for the words. None of them play with the same passion you just showed. Mr. Thompson, I have a proposal for you. He turned, and Emily saw determination in his eyes. Keep working in the kitchen during the day, but 3 nights a week I want you to play piano for the guests. Emily nearly fell off the bench. Are you serious? Very serious, but there are conditions. Emily's heart tightened. There were always conditions. First, you'll need a proper repertoire. Classical, jazz, bossa nova. Second, you must dress appropriately. No chef's uniform. Third, and most important, there can be nothing between us beyond the professional. The last condition caught Emily off guard. Why would he feel the need to say that? Understood, Mr. Thompson. Richard, when you're playing, you can call me Richard. Emily nodded, still processing everything that was happening. In a matter of minutes, her life had taken a completely unexpected turn. We start tomorrow. Arrive an hour early to rehearse. Richard was already heading for the door when he stopped. And Emily, thank you for reminding me why I bought this piano. After he left, Emily remained seated on the bench, her hands resting on the keys. Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of joy. After so many years, she would finally have the chance to do what she loved again. What she didn't know was that that night would change much more than her work routine. Richard Thompson, the cold and distant millionaire, had just opened a door he had kept closed since Catherine's death. And Emily, without realizing it, had awakened something in him that had been dormant for a long time. The next day, Emily arrived at the restaurant with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. She had stayed up all night, recalling pieces she hadn't played in years, worried if she could still perform them with the same skill. The kitchen was already in full swing when she walked in. Her colleagues greeted her as usual, unaware of the change about to happen in her routine. Emily, I want appetizers, shouted Michael, the head chef, as soon as he saw her. Of course, chef, I just need to speak with Mr. Thompson first. Michael raised his eyebrows. Kitchen staff rarely had direct contact with the owner. Did he ask for you? Yes, it's about a special project. Before Michael could question further, Richard appeared at the kitchen door. He wore another impeccable suit, this time charcoal grey, and carried a leather briefcase. Emily, come with me. Silence fell over the kitchen. Every employee stopped what they were doing to watch. The unusual scene. Emily could feel the curious and, in some cases, envious glances of her colleagues. Excuse me, chef, she murmured to Michael before following Richard. They walked to the office on the second floor of the restaurant. It was the first time Emily had entered that space. The walls were covered with awards and certifications, along with photos of Richard with famous personalities. Have a seat, he said, pointing to a chair in front of the desk. I brought some sheet music. I'd like you to review it and tell me which pieces you can play. Emily took the folder and began flipping through the contents. Her heart raced as she saw the titles: Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, but also Tom Jobim, Chico Buarque, composers she admired but rarely had the chance to play. So there are so many pieces. I'll need time to rehearse. That's why I suggest you start today. The restaurant opens at 7. You can rehearse from 5 to 6:30. And my work in the kitchen? I'll talk to Michael. You'll leave early 3 days a week. Emily noticed a photo on Richard's desk. A beautiful woman with dark hair and a radiant smile seated at the piano. It must have been Catherine. She was very beautiful, Emily remarked without thinking. Richard followed her gaze and his expression softened. She was beautiful inside and out. Catherine had a gift for lighting up any room she entered, just like her music. It must be hard to be here every day with so many memories. At first it was unbearable. I thought about selling the restaurant many times, but then I realized it would be like erasing part of her from my life. So I decided to turn the pain into something productive. Emily nodded, understanding. She too knew the pain of loss, though in a different way. Sir, Richard, I need to be honest. It's been years since I've performed in public. I might be rusty. We all need a second chance, Emily. The question is what we do with it. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. "Come in," Richard said. To Emily's surprise, an elegant woman entered the office. She looked to be in her 50s, with impeccably styled blonde hair and wearing an outfit that probably cost more than Emily made in a month. "Richard, darling, did you forget our lunch?" the woman said familiarly, but her eyes were fixed on Emily. "Victoria, I'm sorry. Something came up. This is Emily, our head chef. Emily, this is Victoria Blackwell, friend." Emily noticed the hesitation in the word friend and how Victoria gripped her purse with unnecessary force. "Head chef?" Victoria repeated, her tone making it clear she didn't quite believe it. "And what is a head chef doing in your office?" "Restaurant business," Richard replied curtly. "Can we reschedule lunch for tomorrow?" "Of course," Victoria forced a smile. "But don't forget again, you know how hard it is to get a reservation at a Linea." After Victoria left, an uncomfortable silence hung in the air. "Sorry about that," Richard said, sounding irritated. "No need to apologize. Should I go back to the kitchen?" "Not yet. We need to discuss your outfit for the performances." Emily felt her face grow warm. "Richard, I can't afford proper clothes to play here. My salary barely covers the basics. I'll provide what's necessary. Consider it a work uniform." "I can't accept that." "You can and will. It's not charity, Emily. It's an investment in my business. I want my guests to have the best experience possible, and that includes a well-presented pianist." Emily bit her lip, pride warring. "With need. All right, but I prefer simple styles, nothing too extravagant. I trust your taste. Now, let's go downstairs. I need to talk to Michael about your new schedule." The executive chef's reaction was exactly as Emily had feared. "Are you telling me my best assistant is leaving early 3 times a week to play piano?" Michael crossed his arms, staring at Richard. "She'll still fulfill her duties in the kitchen. She's just adjusting her schedule. And what if we need her during the dinner rush?" "She'll have to manage. The decision is final, Michael." Emily noticed the tension between the two men. Michael was one of the few employees who didn't back down from Richard, probably because he was a renowned chef who could work at any restaurant in the city. "Emily, would you give us a moment?" Richard asked. She left quickly but could hear raised voices from the kitchen. Her co-workers watched her curiously as she returned to her station. "What's going on?" whispered Jessica, her closest friend on the team. "I'll tell you later," Emily replied, focusing on the vegetables she needed to chop. But the questions didn't stop. All morning, Emily was bombarded with inquiries from her colleagues. Some seemed genuinely happy for her, others clearly resentful. "Always knew you were the boss's favorite," Rebecca, one of the senior cooks, remarked sourly. "It's not like that, Rebecca. He found out I play piano and offered me an opportunity." "Right, an opportunity. Is that what they're calling it now?" Emily felt her blood boil but held back. It wasn't worth arguing. People would always assume the worst. The day dragged on. She could barely focus on her kitchen tasks, her mind wandering to the rehearsal she had later. When it was finally time to leave, she practically ran to the locker room. She had brought her best outfit in her bag, a simple black dress she wore for special occasions. It wasn't fancy, but it was the nicest thing she owned. When she entered the main dining room, she found Richard already waiting by the piano. "Punctual, I like that," he said, though Emily noticed his eyes lingered on her for a second longer than necessary. "Where should I begin?" "Play something you're comfortable with. I want to assess your current repertoire." Emily sat at the piano, adjusting the bench to the right height. She chose to start with a piece by Villa-Lobos, something authentically Brazilian that might appeal to the restaurant's clientele. As she played, she didn't notice how intently Richard watched her. There was something about the way she lost herself in the music that transported him to another time, when Catherine used to sit on that same bench and fill the room with melodies. "Perfect," he said when she finished. "Now try something more contemporary." She smoothly transitioned into The Girl from Ipanema, adding her own touch to Tom Jobim's classic. She was so focused she didn't notice when the first dinner guests began arriving. "Richard, I didn't know you'd hired a new pianist," a woman's voice interrupted. Emily stopped playing and saw an elegant couple standing near the entrance. The man looked around Richard's age, while the woman appeared much younger. "William, Amanda, good evening," Richard greeted them. "This is Emily, our newest addition to the restaurant's entertainment." "Marvelous," William said. "Haven't heard Villalobos played so well in ages. Where did you find her?" "She already worked here. Sometimes the best talent is right under our noses." Emily's face warmed at the compliment. She stood to greet them properly. "Pleasure to meet you." "Emily is also our assistant chef," Richard added, "a woman of many talents." Amanda arched her eyebrows, clearly surprised. "Chef and pianist, what an unusual combination." "Life takes us down unexpected paths," Emily replied diplomatically. "Indeed. Well, we won't interrupt rehearsal any longer. William, our table must be ready." After the couple walked away, Richard approached the piano. "You handled them well. William Parker is one of my partners in other ventures. More people might ask similar questions. I'm prepared for that." "Good. Keep rehearsing. I'll check on things in the kitchen." Emily started playing again, but was now aware of the curious glances from the staff preparing the dining room for dinner. Some whispered among themselves, clearly speculating about the situation. Half an hour later, as she was in the middle of a Chopin piece, she felt someone approach. It was Jessica, wearing her waitress uniform. "Em, is it true you're playing here now?" "3 times a week," Emily confirmed without stopping. "That's amazing. I always knew you were too special to stay in the kitchen." "It's not like that, Jessica. I love working in the kitchen too. But this is different, right? Look where you are." Jessica gestured to the luxurious dining room. "This is where you belong." Emily stopped playing and turned to her friend. "I don't belong anywhere, Jessica. I'm just taking an opportunity. The kitchen staff is talking. Some think you're having an affair with the boss." "What? That's ridiculous." "I know it is, but you know how people are. Rebecca's spreading that she saw you two getting cozy last night." Emily sighed in frustration. This was exactly the kind of complication she didn't need. "Richard heard me playing last night and made a professional offer. That's all." "Hey, no need to explain. To me, I believe you. Just thought you should know what they're saying." "Thanks for telling me." Jessica gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze before returning to work. Emily tried to resume rehearsing, but her focus was gone. Rebecca's words bothered her more than she wanted to admit. At 6:30, as agreed, she ended the rehearsal. Several guests already occupied the tables, and Emily could feel their eyes on her as she left the dining room. In the locker room, she quickly changed back into her kitchen uniform. The transformation felt almost symbolic, from the artist she might have been to the worker she needed to be. When she entered the kitchen, the room fell momentarily silent. Michael was the first to speak. "Emily, I need you at the sauce station. We have backed up orders." "Of course, chef." She took her place, trying to ignore the whispers around her. At least the work was familiar and comforting. Here, she knew exactly what to do, how to do it, and what to expect. The rest of the night passed in a blur of activity. The restaurant was packed, and the kitchen ran like a well-oiled machine. Emily lost herself in the routine, almost forgetting the day's events. Almost. Near midnight, as they were finishing cleanup, Richard appeared in the kitchen. Everyone stopped what they were doing. "Great work tonight, team. Emily, could you come to my office when you're done?" As soon as he left, the comments started. "Twice in one day," Rebecca murmured loud enough for everyone to hear. "Must be a very special project indeed." "Rebecca, that's enough," Michael intervened. "Emily, go ahead. We'll finish here." Grateful for the chef's intervention, Emily went back upstairs to the office. Richard stood by the window, looking down at the street. "Have a seat. How was your first rehearsal?" "Good, I think. I still need more practice." "The guests who heard you were impressed. William called earlier with compliments." "I'm glad to hear that." Richard turned to face her. "Emily, I need to be frank. There are already comments about our situation." Emily's stomach twisted. "I know, Jessica told me. It doesn't bother me personally. I'm used to gossip, but I don't want it affecting you or your work." "I can handle it." "Are you sure? People can be cruel when they want to be." "Richard, I've been through worse. When my father got sick, I lost friends, a boyfriend. Even some family members drifted away. I learned that other people's opinions don't pay my bills or ease my pain. He studied her for a moment, seeming to see beyond the employee sitting in front of him. You're stronger than you look. Life taught me to be. Well, then I think I made the right choice. On Thursday, you'll play officially for the first time. Are you ready? I will be. Good. And Emily, if anyone bothers you beyond what's acceptable, I want to know immediately. Emily nodded, standing to leave. At the door, she paused. Richard, thank you for the opportunity, for believing in me. It means more than you can imagine. Don't thank me yet. Let's see how you do on Thursday. But there was a glint in his eyes that contradicted the serious tone of his words. Emily left the restaurant with mixed feelings. On one hand, she was overjoyed at the chance to play again. On the other, the prospect of dealing with envy and malicious comments from her co-workers worried her. At home, her small apartment in Wicker Park felt even smaller after spending the day in the luxurious restaurant, but there was her electronic keyboard, bought through endless installments, waiting for her. She turned on the instrument and began to practice. The neighbors were already used to the muffled sound of the keyboard with partially connected headphones. It was her way of rehearsing without disturbing anyone. She played until her fingers ached, going over every piece she planned to perform. The music transported her, making her forget the exhaustion, the worries, the complicated life she led. Around 3 in the morning, she finally went to bed. But sleep was slow to come. Her mind kept replaying the events of the day, especially the moments with Richard. There was something about him that intrigued her. The way his eyes softened when he spoke about music or Catherine, the contrast between the cold businessman and the man who clearly carried deep pain. There can be no involvement beyond the professional, he had said, but why did he feel the need to set that rule? Was it just caution, or was there something more? Emily scolded herself for the thoughts. She couldn't afford to fantasize. Richard Thompson was her boss, a millionaire who lived in a world completely different from hers. The only thing connecting them was music, and even that was temporary. Or at least that's what she tried to convince herself. The following days passed in an odd routine. During the mornings and afternoons, Emily worked in the kitchen, enduring the stares and comments from her co-workers. Some quietly supported her, while others made sure to show their disapproval. Rebecca was the worst of them all. Whenever Richard appeared in the kitchen, which seemed to be happening more often lately, she made snide remarks. Look, the boss came to check on his investment, she whispered on one such occasion. Emily ignored her, focusing on slicing vegetables with surgical precision. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Michael, on the other hand, seemed conflicted. As the head chef, he resented losing his best assistant during the crucial dinner service. But he also recognized Emily's talent and deep down rooted for her. You're handling the pressure well, he remarked when they were alone. I learned from the best, chef. I'm not just talking about the kitchen. Emily stopped what she was doing and looked at him. People will talk no matter what I do, so I'd rather focus on my work. Wise decision. Just be careful, Emily. Richard Thompson is a complicated man. There's nothing between us, Michael. Yet, the chef murmured, returning to his work. The word echoed in Emily's mind for the rest of the day. On Wednesday, the eve of her first official performance, Richard called her into his office again. This time, several bags from an expensive boutique were on the table. Your performance outfits, he announced. Emily opened the first bag and nearly choked. The dress was stunning, a classic black design, elegant without being flashy. But the price tag, which Richard had clearly forgotten to remove, showed an amount equivalent to 2 months of her salary. Richard, this is too much. I can't accept it. We've already discussed this. It's a work uniform. Uniforms don't cost this much. Mine do, he replied with a half smile. Try it on. I need to know if it needs adjustments. Here? There's an attached bathroom, he said, pointing to a door Emily hadn't noticed before. Reluctantly, she took the dress and went to change. The fabric was soft as silk against her skin, the fit perfect as if tailored just for her. When she stepped out of the bathroom, Richard was shuffling through some papers but looked up as she entered. For a moment, neither spoke. It's Suitable, he finally said, though Emily noticed his voice was slightly hoarse. It's beautiful. Thank you. There are 2 more in the bag, shoes and accessories too. Emily checked the other bags. Everything was tasteful and obviously expensive. She felt like an imposter wearing those clothes. Tomorrow, I want you here at 4. We'll do a full rehearsal before the opening. Understood. And Emily, relax, you'll do fine. It was the first time he'd shown concern for her emotional state. Emily felt something soften inside her. I'm more nervous than I'd like to admit, she confessed. That's normal. But remember, you're not playing to impress me or the guests. You're playing because you love music. Focus on that and everything will be fine. The advice was surprisingly kind, another facet of Richard that Emily was discovering. That night, Emily barely slept. She spent hours at the keyboard, practicing until the neighbors banged on the wall for quiet. Even in bed, her fingers kept moving, playing imaginary melodies in the air. Thursday arrived with a cloudy sky threatening rain. Emily took it as a bad omen, but tried to push the thought away. At the restaurant, the morning flew by. She made silly mistakes in the kitchen, distracted by what lay ahead that evening. Michael had to call her out twice, a rare occurrence. Emily, focus, you're burning the sauce. Sorry, chef. At 3:30, she hung up her apron and went to get ready. In the women's dressing room, Jessica helped with her hair and makeup. You look gorgeous, her friend declared, adding the finishing touches. You'll blow them away. I'm so nervous I can hardly breathe. That's normal, but think about it. How many people get to live their dream? You did it. Emily hugged her friend, grateful for the support. She needed all the positive energy she could get. When she entered the main hall wearing the elegant black dress, several staff members stopped to watch. Emily kept her head high, walking with a confidence she didn't feel all the way to the piano. Richard was already there, adjusting some lighting details. Perfect, he remarked when he saw her. How do you feel? Like I might throw up any second, she admitted. He laughed, a rare and pleasant sound. Catherine said the exact same thing. Before her first professional concert, she spent the first 10 minutes wanting to run off stage. Then she played like an angel for 2 hours. What changed for her? She saw me in the audience, said playing for someone she loved made all the difference. The comment created a tense moment between them. Emily looked away, focusing on the piano. Shall we start the rehearsal? For the next hour, Richard guided her through acoustics, positioning, even how to acknowledge applause. He was meticulous about every detail, but not in a critical way. He seemed genuinely invested in her success. At 6:45, the first guests began to arrive. Emily felt panic rise in her throat. Breathe, Richard approached. You're talented, prepared, and beautiful. Everything will be fine. The compliment about her appearance caught her off guard. Before she could respond, he was already walking, away to greet the guests. At 7 o'clock sharp, Emily sat at the piano. The room was half full, which in a way was better than playing to a packed house. She took a deep breath and began with Clair de Lune by Debussy. The first notes came out shaky, but soon the music enveloped her. It was like coming home after a long journey. Her fingers remembered every nuance, every emotion held within the piece. When she finished, silence was followed by genuine applause. Emily raised her eyes and saw Richard standing near the bar, a glass of whiskey in hand, watching her with an unreadable expression. She continued, alternating between classical and Brazilian popular music. With each piece, she grew more confident. The guests seemed to appreciate it, some even pausing their conversations to pay attention. It was during her performance of Waters of March that Emily noticed Victoria Blackwell entering the restaurant. The woman wore a tight red dress and walked straight to Richard. Emily tried not to get distracted, but she couldn't help but notice from the corner of her eye how Victoria clung to Richard's arm, whispering something in his ear. He looked uncomfortable but didn't pull away. The music nearly faltered with her distraction, but Emily forced herself to focus. It wasn't her business who Richard was involved with. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Emily played for 2 hours, taking short breaks between sets. The guests applauded politely, some even approaching to compliment her or make special requests. When she finally finished at 9 o'clock, she was exhausted, but exhilarated. She had done it. After years, she had performed in public again. "You were wonderful." Jessica appeared with a glass of water. "Everyone's talking about it." "Really?" "Even Rebecca admitted you play well, though she added that it doesn't justify the privileges you're getting." Emily drank the water gratefully, noticing Richard was busy with Victoria and another couple at a nearby table. He hadn't come to speak to her after the performance. Trying not to feel disappointed, Emily went to change. When she returned to the kitchen to grab her things, Michael intercepted her. "Congratulations, you honored the music tonight." "Thank you, Chef, that means a lot coming from you. Just don't let it go to your head. Tomorrow you're back to being my kitchen assistant. Don't worry, I know my place." But did she? As she left the restaurant through the staff exit, Emily wondered if she was fooling herself. For a few hours she had felt special, talented, even beautiful. But the reality was, she was still just an employee, no matter how many expensive dresses Richard gave her. At home she carefully removed the dress and hung it up. Tomorrow she'd return to the white uniform, the pots, and the heat of the kitchen. But for today she had lived a dream. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Emily, it's Richard." Her heart raced. "Hi, is something wrong?" "No, I just wanted to congratulate you. You were exceptional tonight." "Thank you. I thought maybe you didn't like it, since you didn't talk to me afterward." "Sorry about that. Victoria brought some potential investors, business." "Of course, I understand." An awkward silence followed. "Emily, about Victoria." "Richard, you don't owe me any explanations. Your personal life isn't my business." "I know, but..." He paused. "We have a complicated history. We were engaged years ago before I met Catherine. Now she thinks she can pick up where we left off." Emily didn't know what to say. Why was he sharing this with her? "Anyway," Richard continued, "I wanted to make sure you know how much I appreciate your talent. Nights like this remind me why I love music. It was an honor to play Catherine's piano. She would have liked you." His voice softened. "You share the same passion for music." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. After hanging up, Emily stared at the phone for a long time. What was happening between her and Richard? Why did he feel the need to call, to explain about Victoria? And more importantly, why did she care so much? The following days settled into a new routine. Emily divided her time between the kitchen and the piano, navigating two worlds that seemed to grow further apart. In the kitchen, things had stabilized into an uneasy truce. Some co-workers treated her normally, while others kept their distance. Rebecca continued with her venomous comments, but Emily had learned to ignore them. In the dining room during her performances, she transformed. The elegant dress, the majestic piano, the polite applause, all of it contributed to a sense of belonging she'd never felt before. Richard maintained a constant but discreet presence. He always arrived in time to hear her play, usually standing, in the same spot near the bar. Sometimes their eyes met during a piece, and Emily felt something undefined pass between them. On a rainy Tuesday, 3 weeks after her first performance, everything changed. Emily was in the middle of rehearsal when she heard raised voices near the entrance. Richard was arguing with someone, a rare sight, as he always kept his composure. In public. "You can't just show up here." Richard's voice was laced with anger. "It's a public restaurant. I have every right to be here," replied a male voice Emily didn't recognize. She stopped playing, turning discreetly. Richard was facing a tall man, seemingly the same age but with a more worn appearance. There was something familiar about him, though Emily was sure she'd never seen him before. "You lost that right 5 years ago, Andrew." Richard clenched his fists. "I came in peace, I just want to talk." "We have nothing to talk about. You made your choice." "I was her brother too, Richard. I had a right to be at the funeral." Emily held her breath. They were talking about Catherine. "You lost that right when you betrayed her," Richard exploded. "When you chose money over family. That's not how it happened, and you know it. Leave, now, or I'll call security." Andrew looked around, noticing Emily at the piano for the first time. His eyes widened. "Who is she?" he asked, turning back to Richard. "Already found a replacement for Catherine." The punch came so fast Emily barely saw it. Richard hit Andrew square in the jaw, sending him stumbling back. Staff rushed to separate them. "Never dare say her name again." Richard was unrecognizable, his face twisted in rage. Andrew wiped blood from his lip, a bitter smile on his face. Still the same. Thinking you can control everything and everyone. That's why Catherine... Get out! 2 security guards appeared and escorted Andrew out. Richard stood still, breathing heavily, his knuckles red. The room fell silent. Emily didn't know what to do. Should she keep playing? Leave? Richard seemed to remember where he was. He adjusted his jacket, ran a hand through his hair and walked over to the piano. "I'm sorry about that." His voice was hoarse. "Are you okay? Your hand..." "I'm fine. Keep rehearsing, please." But Emily could see he wasn't fine. There was a vulnerability in his eyes that she had never seen before. "Do you want to talk about it?" "No," came the sharp reply. Then softer. "Thank you, but no." Richard walked away, heading up the stairs to his office. Emily returned to the piano, but her heart wasn't in the music. Who was Andrew? What did he mean by "that's why Catherine"? Half an hour later, unable to focus, Emily decided to go up to the office. She knocked gently on the door. "Come." Richard was sitting in the dark, only the city lights partially illuminating the room. A half-empty bottle of whiskey sat on the desk. "I thought I said I didn't want to talk," he remarked without looking at her. "And I thought you shouldn't. Drink alone." Emily stepped inside, closing the door. She sat in the chair across from him, waiting. "Andrew was my brother-in-law." Richard finally broke the silence. "Married to Catherine's sister, Elizabeth." "What happened?" "Money. It's always about money, isn't it?" He took a sip of whiskey. "Andrew worked with me. He was my right-hand man, my best friend. Until I found out he was embezzling from the company." Emily listened silently, letting him vent. "I confronted him privately, gave him the chance to return everything, to leave quietly. But he ran. Abandoned Elizabeth, their 2 young children. Disappeared with nearly 2 million. My God! Elizabeth never recovered, fell into a deep depression. Catherine spent her days taking care of her, trying to help. The stress, the worry." Richard paused, his voice strained. "The doctors said it wasn't the direct cause. But I know. Catherine's aneurysm, the stress contributed." Emily felt tears in her eyes. Now she understood Richard's anger. "It wasn't your fault." "Wasn't it? I brought Andrew into our lives. I trusted him. If I hadn't..." "Richard, stop. You can't live on what-ifs. It'll drive you mad." He finally looked at her. In the dim light, Emily could see the lines of pain on his face. "Why are you here, Emily? Why do you care?" The question caught her off guard. Why did she care? Why was she here, comforting a man who should have been just her employer? "Because I recognize the pain," she answered honestly. Because I know what it's like to lose someone and blame yourself for it." "Your father?" Emily nodded. "I always wonder, if I'd stayed in school, if I'd graduated, gotten a better job, maybe I could have paid for better treatment. Maybe he'd still be alive. That's not how it works. I know, rationally I know, but the heart doesn't understand logic." They sat in silence for a moment, united by their losses. "Catherine would have loved you," Richard said suddenly. "She always said music revealed a person's soul. Yours is luminous." Emily felt her face grow warm. "Richard, sorry. The whiskey's making me sentimental. You don't have to apologize for having feelings." He laughed humorlessly. "In my world, I do. Feelings are weakness, Emily. They're what people use against you. What a sad world. But it's the real world, not the world of music, where everything is beauty and harmony." Emily stood, moving around the desk. Without thinking, she took his bruised hand, examining the swollen knuckles. "You should ice this." "I'm fine." "Stubborn," she murmured, but didn't let go of his hand. Richard watched her, something shifting in his expression. "Emily." "Shh." She placed a finger on his lips. "Don't say anything we'll regret tomorrow." For an endless moment they stayed like that, her holding his hand, their faces too close, the air thick with possibility. Then the phone rang, shattering the spell. Richard answered, slipping back into the controlled businessman. Emily took the chance to slip out quietly, her heart still racing from what had almost happened. In the dressing room, she leaned against the wall, trying to process everything. The story of Andrew and Elizabeth, Richard's pain, the intimate moment between them. She was getting emotionally involved, and that was dangerous. Richard was right. Feelings were a weakness, and she couldn't afford to be weak. But as she changed clothes, Emily couldn't forget the feeling of his hand in hers, the vulnerable look in his eyes, the way he said her soul was luminous. Maybe it was, already too late not to get involved. The next morning, Emily arrived at the restaurant determined to keep things professional. What had happened in the office was just a moment of weakness, nothing more. But her plans fell apart when she found a white rose on her workstation in the kitchen, along with a small note. "Thank you for last night, R." Wow, flowers from the boss. Rebecca appeared out of nowhere. "Things are moving fast. It's just a thank you." Emily quickly tucked the note away. "Of course it is. A white rose. Do you know what that means?" Emily didn't answer, but yes, she knew. White roses meant new beginnings, purity, true love. Did Richard know the symbolism when he chose it? "What's going on here?" Michael walked into the kitchen, noticing the small gathering. "Nothing." "Chef," Emily hid the rose. "I'm already at my station." But Michael noticed the flower. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. The day continued with a palpable tension in the kitchen. Emily could feel the stares, hear the whispers. At lunch, Jessica pulled her aside. What's happening? The whole kitchen is buzzing with rumors." "Richard gave me a rose. That's all." "That's all." "Emily, men like Richard Thompson don't give roses to employees for no reason." "It was a thank you. Yesterday was hard for him, and I offered support." Jessica studied her with concern. "Be careful, friend. I know he's attractive, wealthy, and giving you attention. But men like him don't get involved with women like me." "I know, Jessica. That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say men like him have baggage, and from what I've heard, his is heavy." Emily thought of Andrew, of Catherine, of the pain she'd seen in Richard's eyes. Jessica was right, but something inside her had already passed the point of no return. That afternoon, when she went to rehearsal, she found Richard already in the hall. He was reviewing some documents, but looked up when she entered. "Emily, how are you?" "Fine. Thank you for the rose. I didn't know how to properly thank you for last night. You were..." He searched for the words. "You were exactly what I needed." The air between them grew heavy again. "Richard, about last night, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I know I crossed professional boundaries." "We both did." He stood, walking toward the piano. "What if I said I don't regret it?" Emily felt her breath catch. "Then I'd say you're making everything more complicated." "Life is already complicated, Emily. Sometimes we have to accept the complications worth having." Before she could respond, voices approached. Victoria Blackwell entered the hall with two equally elegant friends. "Richard, I didn't know you'd be here at this hour." Victoria practically purred, completely ignoring Emily. "I oversee every aspect of my business," Richard replied coldly. "Of course. Girls, this is Richard Thompson, the man I've told you about." Victoria turned to her friends. "And this must be the pianist." The dismissive tone didn't go unnoticed. "Emily Johnson." Emily introduced herself with dignity. "Pleasure." Victoria barely glanced at her. "Richard, darling, about Saturday's dinner. I haven't confirmed my attendance, but you have to go. It'll be the social event of the season. All our friends will be there." Victoria: "I'm busy. Emily needs to rehearse." The blonde seemed to notice for the first time the closeness between Richard and Emily. Her eyes narrowed. "Of course, we wouldn't want to interrupt the work." She emphasized the last word. "Come on, girls. Richard, I'll call you later." After they left, Emily let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "Sorry about that." Richard seemed irritated. Does she still hope to get back with you? Victoria hopes to become Mrs. Thompson and gain access to my bank account. The bluntness of his remark surprised Emily. That's a bit harsh. It's the truth. When we were engaged years ago, she cheated on me with my business partner. She only stopped because she found out he had less money than I did. And yet she thinks time erases everything, that she can come back whenever she wants and I'll be waiting. Emily sat at the piano, absent-mindedly running her fingers over the keys. People are complicated. Some are simple. They want money, power, status. They're predictable. And the others? Richard moved closer, sitting beside her on the piano bench. The others are like music, complex, surprising, impossible to control. Emily felt the warmth of his body so near. Her hands trembled slightly on the keys. Which kind do you prefer? I thought I preferred the predictable ones. They're safer. He paused. But lately I've been questioning my preferences. Emily began to play softly, an improvised melody that mirrored the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Music is never safe, she said as she played. It exposes us, reveals our secrets, makes us vulnerable. Maybe it's time to take a risk. His hands covered hers on the keys, stopping the music. Emily turned her face, meeting Richard's eyes just inches from hers. Richard, I know all the reasons why this is a bad idea. The social differences, the professional ones, what people will say. Then why? Because when you play, I remember what it's like to feel. Because your presence makes the days less empty. Because yesterday, when you saw me at my worst, you didn't run away. Emily closed her eyes, fighting the urge to close the distance between them. I can't be a pastime, Richard. I'm not like Victoria or the others. If we get involved, it'll be real for me. You think it wouldn't be real for me? She opened her eyes, studying his face. I don't know. You said yourself that in your world, feelings are a weakness. Then maybe it's time to change worlds. This time, Emily didn't resist. She leaned in, her lips meeting his in a soft, hesitant kiss. Richard responded with a tenderness that surprised her, one hand rising to caress her face. When they pulled apart, both were breathing unevenly. This changes everything, Emily whispered. I know. What do we do now? Richard moved back slightly, running a hand through his hair in a gesture Emily was beginning to recognize as nervousness. I don't know, it's been 5 years since I allowed myself to feel something for someone. We can take it slow. No pressure, no expectations. You deserve more than that. I deserve honesty. The rest, we can build over time. Richard took her hand, intertwining their fingers. Honesty? Then here it is. I think about you more than I should. When you're not here, the restaurant feels empty. Your music awakens something in me I thought I buried with Catherine. Emily squeezed his hand, moved by his confession. I think about you too, even though I know it's complicated, that it could go wrong, that people will judge. Let them judge. I've been judged for worse. They fell silent for a moment, absorbing the weight of what had just happened. What will we tell the others? Emily asked. For now, nothing. We'll be discreet until we understand what this means. People already suspect. They suspect. That's different from knowing. Emily agreed, though she knew it would be hard to hide. Rebecca had already been watching their every interaction. I need to rehearse, she finally said. The guests expect a show, not a romantic drama. Richard stood up, adjusting his jacket. Of course. I'll be in the office if you need me. But before leaving, he leaned in and gently kissed her forehead. Thank you for taking a chance on me. After he left, Emily stared at the piano keys, trying to process everything. In just a few weeks, her life had changed drastically. From a resigned cook to the pianist at the city's most elegant restaurant. And now she was getting involved with Richard Thompson. She began to play, letting the music express what words couldn't. Joy, fear, hope, desire. It all flowed through her fingers onto the keys. She didn't hear when someone entered the room. So it's true. Michael's voice made her stop abruptly. Emily turned to find the chef standing near the entrance, his expression serious. What's true? You and Richard, I saw the kiss. Emily's heart sank. Michael, I can explain. You don't have to. I'm not your father or your judge. He stepped closer. But I care about you, Emily. I've known Richard for years. He's not an easy man. I know. Do you? Do you know that after Catherine died, he shut himself off completely? That he treated the last women who got close to him like disposable objects? Emily swallowed hard. No, she didn't know that. He's changing. Men like Richard Thompson don't change, Emily. They adapt temporarily when something interests them. Why are you telling me this? Michael sighed, sitting in a nearby chair. Because you remind me of my daughter. Talented, a dreamer, wanting to see the best in people. And because I don't want to see you get hurt. What if I say, the risk is worth it? Then I'd say the heart doesn't listen to advice, but Emily, promise me you'll take care of yourself. That you won't lose yourself in this story. I promise. Michael stood ready to leave, but paused. And Emily, no matter what happens between you two, don't let anyone diminish your talent. You were born to play the piano, no matter what kitchen you work in during the day. The words stayed with Emily for the rest of her rehearsal. Michael was right about many things. She didn't truly know Richard deeply. She was basing everything on moments of vulnerability, on glances and pretty words. But when he appeared, in the hall at 7, as he always did, and his eyes met hers with a warmth that hadn't been there before, Emily knew it was already too late to turn back. The heart, as Michael said, doesn't listen to advice. That night, Emily played like never before. Every note carried the emotion of the day, the promise of what might come. The guests seemed to notice. The applause was more enthusiastic, the tips more generous. During a break, Richard approached discreetly. You're radiant tonight. Music reflects the musician's state of mind. So your spirit is happy. Cautiously optimistic, Emily corrected with a smile. Wise answer. Have dinner with me later, I promise a discreet place. Emily hesitated. Dining together outside the restaurant would make it all more real, more public. Yes, she replied before reason could interfere. Richard's smile lit up, his face in a way that made him look years younger. Perfect. I'll meet you at the staff exit at 10. The rest of the performance flew by. Emily could barely contain her excitement. A date. She was going on a date with Richard Thompson. In the dressing room, she changed out of her performance dress into a simple outfit she always kept in her locker, jeans and a silk blouse. It wasn't anything special, but it was the best she had. Jessica appeared as she was reapplying her lipstick. Going out? Just having dinner with a friend. Emily, everyone saw how Richard looked at you today. You don't have to hide it from me. Emily sighed. It's complicated, Jessica. Love always is. Who said anything about love? It's just a dinner. Jessica smiled knowingly. Of course, just a dinner, with the man who makes your eyes shine like stars. Emily was about to protest, but her phone vibrated. A message from Richard. I'm waiting. Go, Jessica gently nudged her. Be happy, you deserve it. Emily descended the stairs leading to the staff exit, her heart pounding. Richard was leaning against a discreet black sedan, different from the luxurious cars he usually drove. I thought it best not to draw attention, he explained, opening the door for her. Thank you. Where are we going? Trust me? Emily got into the car, a silent answer. They drove in comfortable silence through the city. Richard seemed to know the streets well, avoiding the busier areas. Finally, they stopped in front of a small bistro in Lincoln Park, far from Chicago's usual elite circuit. How do you know this place? Emily asked, surprised. Catherine loved it. We called it our little secret, he said, mentioning his late wife without the usual pain. I think she'd approve of me bringing you here. The bistro was cozy, with wooden tables and soft lighting. The owner, an Italian man with a thick mustache, recognized Richard immediately. Mr. Thompson, it's been so long. And who is this bella signora? Giuseppe, this is Emily. Emily, Giuseppe makes the best pasta in all of Illinois. An exaggeration, but I'll take the compliment. Your usual table? Richard hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Giuseppe led them to a secluded corner with a view of the city lights. Your usual table? Emily asked when they were alone. Catherine and I came here when we wanted to escape the world. I haven't been back since. We can go somewhere else if you'd prefer. No, it's time to make new memories. A waiter brought wine without being asked. Richard poured them both a glass. A toast, he proposed, to new beginnings. To risks worth taking, Emily added. They clinked glasses, the sound echoing like a promise. Tell me about yourself, Richard requested. I want to know everything. Your childhood, your dreams, how you discovered music. Emily laughed. Everything. It's going to be a long night. We have time, so she told him. About growing up in a modest but loving home, about her mother singing while cooking, her father saving every penny for her piano lessons. They believed I'd be a famous concert pianist, she said, a touch of melancholy in her voice. My mother said she'd see me perform at the Chicago Symphony Center one day. It could still happen. Richard, be realistic. I'm 32, working as a cook and playing at a restaurant 3 times a week. That dream died long ago. Dreams don't die. Sometimes they just hibernate. The food arrived, homemade pasta with a sauce that smelled like heaven. Emily took a bite and moaned in delight. This is incredible. Giuseppe saves his best recipes for special guests. They ate, talking about music, food, the city. Richard proved to be an engaging conversationalist when he let his guard down, with opinions on art and culture that surprised Emily. You're not what you seem, she remarked. How so? The cold, calculating businessman, it's a mask, isn't it? Richard swirled his wine glass, thoughtful. We all wear masks, Emily. The question is who we feel safe enough to take them off with. And you feel safe with me? More than I should, he admitted. You disarm me in a way I don't understand. The feeling's mutual. They held each other's gaze for a long moment, 1,000 unspoken words floating between them. Emily, I need to be honest about something. Richard broke the silence, her heart tightened. Here came reality. Victoria isn't the only one who'll cause trouble when they find out about us. I have partners, investors, a social circle that won't approve of you getting involved with a cook, Emily finished. I don't care about their opinions. But your company, your business, it's just business. I learned the hard way that money can't buy the important things. Emily reached her hand across the table, touching his. I don't want to complicate your life. You don't complicate it. You light it up. The simple words, spoken with sincerity, made Emily's eyes well up. No one's ever said that about me. Then no one's paid enough attention. The rest of dinner passed in a haze of wine, good food, and easy conversation. Emily couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so comfortable with someone. When Richard drove her back to the restaurant to pick up her car, neither of them wanted the night to end. Thank you for tonight, Emily said, for everything. Emily, this is just the beginning. He leaned in, kissing her softly. Unlike the kiss at the piano, this one was a promise, a seal on something neither could deny anymore. Tomorrow? Richard asked as they pulled apart. Always. Emily drove home in a cloud of happiness, but reality was waiting in the form of a text on her phone. I know about your little dinner. Be careful what you wish for. Women like you are disposable to men like him. Died Cedars. Rebecca. Of course. Emily deleted the message, refusing to let the poison ruin her night. But a seed of doubt had been planted. What if Rebecca was right? What if she was just another temporary distraction for Richard? No, she pushed the thought away. The man who had dinner with her, who shared memories of Catherine, who kissed her like she was precious, that man was real. But as she got ready for bed, Emily couldn't completely shake Michael's words. Men like Richard Thompson don't change. Only time would tell who was right. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following weeks were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. By day, Emily and Richard kept up a professional facade, exchanging only formal greetings when they crossed paths. But at night, after her performances, they escaped to hidden little restaurants, cafes in distant neighborhoods, anywhere they could just be Richard and Emily, not the millionaire and the cook. They were precious moments of discovery. Emily learned that Richard was afraid of heights, but loved stargazing. That he'd played guitar as a boy but gave it up when his father said music wouldn't pay. That he still visited Catherine's grave every Friday. Richard, in turn, discovered that Emily wrote her own compositions, tucked away in a worn notebook. That she sent half her paycheck to help her mother. That her greatest fear was ending her life without having made a difference in the world. "But you do make a difference," he said one evening as they walked through Grant Park after work. "Your music touches people." "I play piano at a restaurant, Richard. It's not exactly the Berlin Philharmonic." "So what? Beauty doesn't need a grand stage to exist." Conversations like these made Emily fall deeper in love, even as she fought the feeling. It was too soon, too complicated, too unlikely, but the heart doesn't understand logic. At the restaurant, the tension was palpable. The staff had noticed their outings, the lingering glances, the way Richard smiled when Emily played. Rebecca was unbearable. "How long do you think this will last?" she taunted one particularly busy afternoon in the kitchen. "Men like him always go back to women of their own class." "Rebecca, focus on work," Michael interjected, but Emily saw the worry in his eyes. Jessica tried to be supportive, but even she was uneasy. "Em, you're happy and that's great. But have you thought about the future? What happens when his family finds out? The friends?" Emily didn't want to think about that. She just wanted to live in the present, those stolen moments of happiness. But the future has an annoying habit of arriving, whether we like it or not. It was on a rainy Thursday that the first bomb dropped. Emily was rehearsing when Andrew, Richard's brother-in-law, showed up again. This time, Richard wasn't there. Emily stopped playing immediately. "The restaurant is closed," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I know. I came to talk to you." Andrew stepped closer. Up close, Emily could see the resemblance to the photos of Elizabeth she'd seen in Richard's office. The same green eyes, the same determined chin. "We have nothing to talk about." "Oh, but we do. You're Richard's new protégé, aren't you?" The pianist who's making him smile again. "What do you want?" Andrew sat in a nearby chair, casual as if he had every right to be there. "I want you to know what you're getting into." Richard must have told you his version of the story, I imagine. The wicked brother-in-law who stole money and ran away. Isn't it true? Truth is a relative concept. Yes, I took money. But do you know why? Emily didn't answer, but Andrew continued anyway. "Because Richard was destroying my family. He controlled everything, how much Elizabeth spent, where she went, who she spoke to. Catherine suffered watching her sister in that gilded prison. That doesn't justify theft. It doesn't. But it explains the desperation. I took the money to run away with Elizabeth and the kids, to start over somewhere far away. But she didn't have the courage. Richard had convinced her she wouldn't survive without him." Emily felt a chill down her spine. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I see how he looks at you, the same possessive look he had with Catherine, and because I don't want to see another woman trapped in his web. Richard isn't like that, isn't he? Ask him about Nicole Williams or Samantha Miller, women he discarded as soon as he got tired of them." Emily knew the names. Michael had mentioned that Richard had relationships after Catherine's death. "People change." Andrew laughed humorlessly. "Sweetheart, men like Richard don't change. They refine their techniques. You're different from the others, I'll admit. More genuine. But that just means it'll take longer for him to get tired of you. Get out. Now." "Of course, but think about what I said." "What?" "And when you start noticing the signs, the control disguised as care, the jealousy called protection, remember this conversation." Andrew left, leaving Emily shaking. Could it be true? Was she blinded by her feelings? When Richard arrived, an hour later, he found her still standing in the middle of the hall. "Emily, what happened?" She told him about Andrew's visit. She watched Richard's face darken with every word. How dare he? Is it true?" Emily interrupted. "About you controlling Elizabeth? About Nicole and Samantha?" Richard stopped, taking a deep breath. "Andrew twists everything. I did help Elizabeth financially, yes. I set a budget because she spent compulsively. As for Nicole and Samantha, yes, they were relationships that didn't work out. Nothing more." "Why didn't they work out?" Richard ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Why does it matter? Because I need to know if I'm just another in line. Emily, no. You're... He stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. You're completely different. Is that what you tell all of them? The blow was low, and Emily regretted it immediately, but the doubt had been planted. Richard let her go, stepping back. If that's what you think of me, maybe Andrew is right. Maybe I haven't changed. Richard, I didn't mean... I need air. He left, leaving Emily alone with her doubts and regret. Why had she let Andrew manipulate her so easily? She played mechanically that night, her heart heavy. Richard didn't. Show up at the hall, breaking their weeks-long tradition. Jessica noticed her sadness. Did you two fight? I think I ruined everything. What happened? Emily summarized briefly. Jessica listened, then sighed. Relationships are about trust. If you don't trust him... I do trust him, or I thought I did. It's complicated. Love always is. There was that word again. Love. Emily still didn't have the courage to admit it out loud, but yes, she was in love. Hopelessly in love with a man who might be everything Andrew said he was, or maybe not. After work, Emily went to Richard's office. She knocked, but there was no answer. The door was unlocked. He was by the window, a glass of whiskey in hand, watching the city. You shouldn't drink so much, she said softly. I shouldn't do a lot of things. Add it to the list. Emily approached slowly. I'm sorry, I was unfair. You were honest. There's a difference. Richard, look at me. He turned. In the dim light, he looked tired, older. Want to know about Nicole and Samantha? I'll tell you. Nicole was a model. Beautiful, ambitious, interested in my money. It lasted 3 months. Samantha was a lawyer, smart, good company. 6 months. Know why they ended? Emily shook her head. Because I compared them all to Catherine. I looked for something in them I'd never find because I was searching for a replacement, not a real person. And with me? Richard sat down, his glass stepping closer. With you, it's different. I don't see Catherine when I look at you. I see Emily, unique, talented, frustrating Emily who makes me want to be better. Andrew said, Andrew is a bitter man who blames everyone for his choices. Yes, I helped Elizabeth financially. Yes, I set boundaries because she was drowning in debt. If that's control, then I'm guilty. Emily touched his face, feeling the stubble. I'm sorry for doubting you. Don't be. You have every right to question. Just don't let others decide what you should believe. They kissed, a kiss that carried apologies, promises, and something deeper neither was ready to name. Stay with me tonight, Richard murmured against her lips. Emily hesitated. Staying the night would mean crossing a line there was no coming back from. Richard, just sleep, I promise. I just don't want to be alone tonight. The vulnerability in his voice decided for her. Okay. They went to Richard's penthouse, an apartment that screamed wealth but felt strangely impersonal. Emily noticed few photos, few personal items. It feels like a hotel, she remarked. It was never a home. I bought it after Catherine. After. Our real house had too many memories. Richard lent her a t-shirt to sleep in. They lay in the enormous bed, keeping their distance at first, but in the night they naturally drifted closer. Emily woke with Richard's arm around her, feeling safe and terrified at once. It was too real, too intimate, too dangerous. But when he murmured her name in his sleep, pulling her closer, she knew there was no going back. She was hopelessly involved. Dawn brought awkwardness. Waking in Richard's bed with daylight exposing the reality of where they were made Emily question everything. I have to go, she said, getting up. I need to stop by home before work. Emily, wait. Let's have coffee. I can't, I'm already late. She practically fled, leaving Richard confused and, she suspected, hurt. At work, Emily tried to focus, but her mind wandered, the feeling of waking in his arms, the scent of his cologne, the way he'd murmured her name. Earth to Emily! Michael snapped his fingers in front of her. Where's your head at? Sorry, boss. 3rd time today. What's going on? Before she could answer, a commotion at the entrance drew attention. Victoria Blackwell stormed into the kitchen like a hurricane, ignoring the staff's protests. "Where is she?" she shouted. "Where's the little slut who thinks she can steal Richard from me?" Emily felt her blood run cold. "Ma'am, you can't be here." Michael tried to intervene. "Shut up!" Victoria pushed him aside. "You," she pointed at Emily. "You gold digger. You think you've won because you spent one night with him." How did she know? "Victoria, let's talk outside." Emily tried to stay calm. "Talk? About what? About how you seduced a vulnerable man, how you took advantage of his weakness for music to get into his bed. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Then what was it? Tell everyone how a low-class little cook managed to snag Richard Thompson." The humiliation burned. Everyone in the kitchen watched, some with pity, others with malicious satisfaction. Rebecca smiled openly. "What's going on here?" Richard's voice cut through the air. He stood in the doorway, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Richard!" Victoria rushed to him. "I came as soon as I heard. How could you? With her?" "Victoria, get out of my restaurant. Now." "But Richard, now!" The shout made everyone flinch. Emily had never seen Richard lose control like that. Victoria left, but not without throwing a venomous look at Emily. "This isn't over," she whispered as she passed. Richard approached Emily, ignoring all the stares. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, just embarrassed." "You have nothing to be embarrassed about. Victoria is the one who—" "Richard, please, not here." He looked around, seeming to notice the audience for the first time. "Everyone back to work," Michael ordered. "Show's over." Slowly the kitchen returned to normal, but Emily could still feel the eyes on her, hear the whispers. "I need to get out of here," she murmured. "Come with me." Richard took her hand. "I can't just abandon my station." "Michael," Richard called, "Emily is dismissed for the rest of the day." "Understood," Michael replied, but Emily saw concern in his eyes. They left through the back door. Richard led her to his car and drove in silence until they reached an overlook with a view of the city. "How did Victoria know?" Emily finally asked. "She probably saw me leaving with you last night or coming back this morning. She has methods." "Methods?" "Victoria is obsessed with the idea of getting back together. She likely has someone watching me." Emily felt sick. "That's twisted. That's Victoria. She's always gotten what she wanted in life. She doesn't take rejection well." "Richard, maybe we should—" "No, don't finish that sentence." "But your life is turning into a circus because of me." Richard turned to her, taking her hands. "My life was a desert before you, empty, colorless, without music. If the price for having you is some social drama, I'll pay it gladly. It's not just social drama, it's my job, my reputation." "Then quit." "What?" "Quit the restaurant. Come work with me in another way, as my official pianist or music consultant. Or—" "Richard, no. I can't depend on you. It's not dependence, it's partnership." Emily pulled her hands away, frustrated. "You don't understand. I've worked hard to get where I am. I can't throw it all away for me? For a relationship that started just weeks ago." The silence that followed was heavy. Richard looked out at the city, his jaw tight. "Is that all this is to you? A few weeks?" "That's not what I meant." "But it's what you said." Emily touched his arm. "Richard, I'm being realistic. You're a millionaire. I'm a cook. You have an entire world that won't accept me. How long before the pressure is too much?" "You're scared." "I'm being practical." "You're scared," he repeated, turning to face her, "of letting go, of believing this could work. And you're not?" "Terrified," he admitted, "but even more terrified of losing you because of my own cowardice." The words struck deep. Emily felt tears in her eyes. "What if we're not enough? What if love isn't enough to bridge the gap?" Richard pulled her into his arms. "Then at least we'll have tried. Isn't it better than always wondering what if?" Emily buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, feeling the solidity of his embrace. "I'm so afraid," she whispered. "Me too. But I'm more afraid of a life without you." They held each other for long minutes. The city spread below like a silent witness to their fears and hopes. "What do we do now?" Emily asked. We face it together. Victoria, the comments, the prejudices, together. People will talk. Let them talk. I could lose my job. Then I'll open a restaurant just for you to shine. Emily laughed despite her tears. You can't solve everything with money. No, but I can make sure you have options, that you're not trapped by necessity. What if I want to stay by choice? Richard pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. Then I'll be the happiest man in Illinois. They kissed there, with the city as their backdrop, sealing an unspoken promise to face whatever came. But Emily knew the battle had only just begun. Victoria wouldn't give up easily. The restaurant staff would keep judging. The society Richard moved in would reject her. Would love be enough to overcome all this? Only time would tell. When they returned to the restaurant, the atmosphere was tense. Emily could feel the stares as soon as she walked in. Richard accompanied her to the kitchen, a clear gesture of support that didn't go unnoticed. Emily, Michael called, my office now. Richard made to follow her, but Emily stopped him. I need to handle this alone. Are you sure? I am. In Michael's small office, Emily braced for the worst. Sit down, the chef said. We need to talk about this morning. Michael, I'm sorry about the commotion. It's not about the commotion. It's about you, Emily. You're losing yourself in this. What do you mean? The Emily I know wouldn't walk out in the middle of a shift, wouldn't let personal drama interfere with professionalism. Emily lowered her head. He was right. You're right, I acted poorly. I'm not scolding you, I'm worried. You're too talented to let a romance, no matter how intense, destroy your career. It won't destroy, won't it? Emily, half the team wants your head out of jealousy. The other half thinks you're selling yourself for money. How will you work in that environment? The harsh words hit her like slaps. I'll prove them wrong. How? By continuing to leave mid-shift when the boss calls? Emily had no answer. Michael sighed. Look, I won't fire you, you're too good for that. But you need to decide what you want. To be a chef or the boss's girlfriend, the two together won't work. Why not? Because the world isn't fair, Emily. And because you deserve to be respected for your talent, not known as the boss's mistress. The word mistress hurt more than Emily expected. I understand. I hope so. Now get back to work. And Emily? Think about what I said. She left the office with the weight of the world on her shoulders. Michael was right. How could she have a serious career if everyone saw her only as Richard's conquest? The rest of the day was torment. Rebecca made snide remarks at every opportunity. Other co-workers treated her with coldness or false sympathy. Only Jessica remained genuinely by her side. Ignore them, she whispered during a break. They're jealous. It's not just jealousy, Jessica. It's complicated. Love always is. Emily wanted to scream that it wasn't about love. It was about survival, dignity, impossible choices. But who was she fooling? It was about love, a love that was costing too much. That night, as she prepared to play, she found an envelope on the piano. Inside, a single sheet with crude words about her and Richard, illustrated with obscene drawings. Emily's hands trembled. Who hated her this much? What is this? Richard appeared behind her. Emily tried to hide the paper, but he was faster. The fury on his face when he read it was terrifying. Who did this? It doesn't matter. How doesn't it matter? This is harassment, Emily. And what are you going to do? Fire the whole team until you find out? Richard crumpled the paper forcefully. If I have to. No, Richard, you can't protect me from everything. I can try. I don't want your protection. I want... She stopped, frustrated. What do you want? I don't know anymore, she admitted. I thought I did. I wanted to play, to be recognized for my talent. Now I'm just the woman who sleeps with the boss. You're so much more than that. To you, to the world, I'm just that. Richard pulled her into his arms. Then change the narrative. Show them who you really are. How? By playing, shining, being so incredible they can't ignore your talent. Emily wanted to believe it was that simple, but reality was crueler. That night she played with anger, frustration, passion. Every note carried her conflicting emotions. The audience seemed to notice. The applause was louder, the tips bigger. After the performance, Richard was waiting for her. "Come with me, I want to show you something." "Richard, I'm tired. Please." She followed him to the top floor of the building, an area she'd never visited. Richard opened a door, revealing a large, empty space. "What is this?" "My next project. Or rather, ours." Emily stared at him, confused. "Richard, a cultural space. Music, art, culture. A place where talents like yours can shine without social constraints." "Are you serious?" "Completely. I want you to be my partner. Not just a pianist, but the music curator, artistic director." Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her. "I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because it'll look like I'm with you for the wrong reasons. Or it'll look like I recognize your talent and want to invest in it." "Richard, think about it. You don't have to decide now." "But Emily, it's a chance to make the difference you've always wanted." The offer was tempting, terribly tempting, but also dangerous. Accepting would mean intertwining their lives even more. "I'll think about it," she promised. "That's all I ask." They kissed there in the empty space full of possibilities, as Emily wondered if she was about to fulfill her dreams or lose them completely. End of story. So, dear listener, what did you think of Emily's story? Did she make the right decisions? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss more emotions.